The morning sun painted the wheat fields of New Hanyang Colony in golden colors. Dong Ho wiped sweat from his face as he walked between the rows of grain. The harvest would be good this year. Very good. He smiled as he thought about the reports he would send back to Earth. Another successful colony. Another place where humans could call home. The soil readings looked perfect today, called Heywan from across the field. She was checking the medical sensors they used to monitor the crops for any dangerous chemicals. As the colony's doctor, she worried about everything that could hurt people, even the food they grew. Dong Ho waved back at her. Heywan had been his friend since they both arrived on New Hanyang 3 years ago. She came to help people stay healthy. He came to grow food. Together, they had helped build something beautiful. The colony was small, but growing. 200 families lived in the settlement now. They had schools, shops, and even a small hospital where Heywan worked. Children played in the streets while their parents worked the fields or ran the machines that kept everything running. Kungmin walked up the dirt path toward Dong Ho. His clothes were dirty from working on the water pumps all morning. Before coming to New Hanyang, Kungmin had been a soldier. He fought in the war against the Centauri pirates 10 years ago. But now he was tired of fighting. He wanted to build things instead of destroying them. The new pumps are working well, Kungmin said. We should have enough water for the next expansion zone by winter. Dong Ho nodded. They were always planning for more growth. More families would come from Earth next year. More children would be born. The colony would keep getting bigger and stronger. Have you heard from Sunya today? Heywan asked as she joined them. She was supposed to send the weekly report to Earth this morning. Sunya ran the communication center. Every week she sent messages back to Earth, telling them how the colony was doing. She also received messages from other colonies and from Earth. Sometimes she got news about families. Sometimes she got orders from the colonial administration. She was working late last night, Kilman said. Something about strange signals from the outer system, probably just solar storms. They talked while they walked back toward the main settlement. The houses were simple but comfortable. Most were made from local stone and wood from the forests near the mountains. Gardens grew beside every home. Flowers and vegetables mixed together in colorful patterns. Taehyun met them at the edge of town. He was young and excited about everything. He came to New Hanyang to study the local plants and animals. He wanted to understand how life worked on this new world. His bright eyes always seemed to be looking for something interesting. Did you see the birds this morning? He asked. They were acting strange, flying in circles and making loud noises. I think something might be bothering them. Dong Ho looked up at the sky. It was clear blue with only a few white clouds. Nothing seemed wrong, but animals sometimes knew things before humans did. He made a note to watch them more carefully. They reached the town square just as the church bells rang for noon. People came out of their shops and homes for lunch. Children ran from the school toward their families. Everything was normal and peaceful. Then Sunya came running from the communication center. Her face was white with fear. She was holding a message pad in her shaking hands. Emergency signal from the outer system, she said. Her voice was so quiet they could barely hear her. The mining station on Asteroid Belt 7. They sent a distress call 30 minutes ago. What kind of distress? Kungmin asked. His soldier training was showing. His body was already getting ready for trouble. Unknown contact, Sunya read from her pad. Large vessel. Not responding to communications. Moving toward the inner system. Then the signal stopped. They all looked at each other. Ships sometimes broke down in space. But mining stations had good equipment and smart people. They did not send distress calls unless something was really wrong. Could be pirates, Kungmin said. Or maybe their equipment failed. No, Sunya shook her head. I checked with the other stations. 3 more have gone silent in the past hour. All in a line pointing toward us. A cold feeling grew in Dong Ho's stomach. 3 stations going silent was not an accident, and if something was moving toward them from the outer system, it would reach New Hanyang in a few hours. We should contact the defense force, Heywan said. They have ships that can check what is happening. Sunya shook her head again. I tried. No answer from Defense Command. No answer from any military station in this sector. The cold feeling in Dong Ho's stomach got worse. The Defense Force always answered emergency calls. Always. If they were not answering, something terrible was happening. More people had gathered in the square. They could see that something was wrong from the way Sunya and the others were talking. Parents called their children closer. Shop owners came out to listen. What should we do? Asked Myung. She was a teacher at the school. She had 40 children to think about. King Min took charge. His military training was useful now. First, we need to get everyone together. All families should come to the community center. We need to make plans in case we have to defend ourselves. Defend against what? Asked an old man named Hanzal. He had come to New Hanyang to retire in peace. We don't even know what is out there. Before anyone could answer, the sky began to change. The blue color started to fade. It became darker, like night was coming in the middle of the day. But this was not natural darkness. This was something else. Taehan pointed up with a shaking finger. Look, high above them, something was blocking out the sun. It was huge, bigger than anything they had ever seen. The shape was wrong for a human ship. It looked alive somehow, like a giant sea creature swimming through space instead of water. The thing had long parts that moved like arms or tentacles. Lights pulsed along its sides in patterns that hurt to look at. As it got closer, they could hear a sound like singing, but the song was sad and angry at the same time. Everyone inside, Kyungmin shouted, now, move. People began to run toward their homes and the community center. Parents carried small children. Old people helped each other walk faster. Sunya was trying to use her radio to call for help, but only static came out. Dong Ho looked back at his wheat fields one more time. The golden grain was still beautiful in the strange light from the alien ship. He had worked so hard to make things grow here. Now something was coming to destroy it all. Come on, Haewon, grabbed his arm. We have to go. They ran toward the community center with everyone else. Behind them, the alien ship settled over New Hanyang like a dark cloud. The singing sound got louder and sadder. The lights on the ship pulsed faster. Then everything went quiet. Even the birds stopped making noise. The only sound was people breathing hard from running in fear. Something was about to begin. Something that would change everything they knew about their small, peaceful world. The destroyer had arrived. Inside the community center, 200 people crowded together in the main hall. Children cried while their mothers tried to comfort them. Men stood near the windows, looking out at the dark shape that covered their sky. Everyone spoke in whispers, as if talking too loud might make the alien ship notice them. Sunya sat at a table with her communication. Equipment spread out before her. She had carried everything she could from the communication center before the darkness came. Now she was trying to reach anyone who might help them. Still no contact with Defense Command, she said to Kyungmin. But I'm picking up emergency broadcasts from other colonies. Kyungmin leaned closer to listen. The radio crackled with static and broken voices. Most of the messages were too damaged to understand, but some words came through clearly. Words like destroyed and no survivors, and run while you can. Can you clean up the signals? Asked Dong Ho. He was trying to stay calm, but his hands were shaking. All around them, families held each other tight and waited for news. Sunya worked with her equipment for several minutes. She adjusted frequencies and filtered out the static. Slowly, the voices became clearer. What they heard made everyone in the room go silent. This is Colony Ship Aurora calling any station, came a woman's voice through the speakers. We are under attack. Repeat. We are under attack. Unknown vessel destroyed our orbital defenses in minutes. They're harvesting our population. If anyone receives this message, do not come here. Do not try to help us. Run. The message cut off with the sound of explosions. Sunya found another signal. This one was from Kepler Station, a mining colony 3 systems away. Day 5 of the siege, a man's tired voice reported. The entity has taken apart our defense grid piece by piece. Every weapon we use against it, it learns to counter within hours. It's not just attacking us. It's studying us. Recording everything we do. Yesterday we tried to ram it with cargo ships loaded with explosives. Today it has shields that make our explosives useless. Static took over the signal for a moment, and the voice returned. The pattern is always the same. First, it destroys our ability to call for help. Then it takes apart our defenses. Then it begins harvesting. Not just resources, people. It takes people alive and does something to them. We can hear them screaming from inside that thing. The signal died. Heywan put her hand over her mouth. As a doctor, she had seen terrible things before, but this was different. This was something that treated humans like crops to be harvested. Taehyun was writing notes in a small book. Even scared, he could not stop being a scientist. The creature is learning, he said. Each colony it attacks teaches it something new. By the time it reaches the next target, it knows how to counter their defenses. How many colonies has it hit? Asked Myung. She was thinking about all the children in those places. All the families like the ones sitting around them now. Sonia checked her records. She had been tracking the emergency signals for hours now. 17 confirmed attacks in the past 3 months. Maybe more. And it's moving in a straight line toward the core systems. Toward Earth, Dong-ho said quietly. Everyone looked at him. Earth was home. Earth was where most of their families still lived. 3 billion people lived on Earth and the colonies around it. We have to warn them, said Hanzel. The old man's voice was shaking with anger. We have to tell Earth what is coming. I've been trying, Sunya said. But our transmission power is too weak to reach that far. And even if we could get a message through, would they believe us? Kunmin was staring out the window at the alien ship. The dark shape had not moved since it arrived. It just hung there like a storm cloud that would never pass. What does it want? He asked. Why is it doing this? Maybe it's hungry, suggested a young woman named Yoonji. She worked in the colony's food processing plant. Maybe it needs to eat planets to survive. No. Taehyun shook his head. If it just wanted resources, it would strip mine planets from orbit. But it's taking people alive. It's studying us. Learning how we think and fight. Sunya found another signal. This one was clearer than the others. It came from New Beijing Colony. Only 2 systems away from New Hanyang, this is Admiral Park Woojin of the 3rd Defense Fleet, a strong voice announced. We are moving to intercept the hostile alien vessel. All civilian ships are ordered to evacuate the system immediately. Hope filled the room. The Defense Fleet had real warships with powerful weapons. Maybe they could stop this thing. 15 minutes later, Sunya said as she fast-forwarded through the recording. The same voice came back on the radio. But now it sounded different. Scared. The entity has destroyed 12 of our ships without taking any damage. Our weapons pass right through some kind of energy field around it. It's launching some sort of biological fighters. They move like they're alive. Like they can think. Explosions could be heard in the background. It's not just immune to our weapons. It's copying them. I can see structures growing on its hull that look like our missile launchers. But bigger. Stronger. The Admiral's voice was getting harder to hear over the sounds of battle. All ships, retreat immediately. Repeat, all ships retreat. Do not engage this entity. Do not try to fight it. It learns too fast. It adapts too quickly. We're not fighting a ship. We're fighting something that gets stronger every time we hurt it. The signal ended with a sound like metal. Being torn apart, the community center was completely quiet now. Even the children had stopped crying. Everyone understood what they had just heard. The most powerful military fleet in human space had been defeated in minutes. It's coming here next, whispered a man near the back of the room. When? Asked me. Young Ta Tahain was doing calculations in his notebook. Based on the pattern of attacks and the time between them, probably tonight. Maybe sooner. Kyungmin stood up and walked to the center of the room. His military training was taking over. When everything looked hopeless, a soldier had to make plans anyway. We need to organize, he said in a loud voice. Everyone who has military or police experience, come with me. We'll plan defensive positions. Everyone else, gather food, water, and medical supplies. We'll set up shelter areas in the basement. What's the point? Asked Hansel. You heard those messages? Nothing can stop that thing. Maybe Kungmin said. But we're not going to just sit here and wait to die. If it wants to harvest us, it will have to work for it. Dongho stood up too. He's right. We built this colony from nothing. We turned empty land into farms and homes. We're not helpless. But even as he said the words, Dongho looked out at the alien ship hanging over them like death itself. The thing had destroyed fleets and consumed entire worlds. What could a few farmers and families do against something like that? Outside, the alien ship began to pulse with brighter lights. The sad singing sound started again, but now it was getting louder and closer. The harvesting was about to begin. The morning came gray and cold. Dongho woke up on the hard basement floor with his back aching and his stomach empty. They had been hiding in the old church for 5 days now. The food was almost gone. The water would last maybe 2 more days. Any word from the outside? He asked Sunya. She was sitting in the corner with her radio equipment. He's still trying to reach other survivors. Nothing, she said without looking up. The last signal from Sector 7 went silent yesterday. I think we're the only ones left. 12 people. That was all that remained of New Hanyang Colony. 12 people hiding in a basement while alien machines controlled. The minds of their friends and family outside. Hae-won was checking on Yunji's baby. The little girl had stopped crying 2 days ago. Now she just lay quiet in her mother's arms, too weak from hunger to make noise. Her skin was pale and her breathing was shallow. She needs food, Hae-won whispered to Dongho. Real food, not the emergency rations we have left. And clean water? If we don't get help soon... She did not finish the sentence. They all knew what would happen. Kyung-min was standing by the small basement window, watching the harvesting machines patrol the streets above. His hands were clenched into fists. 5 days of hiding had been harder on him than all the fighting before. I can see 15 machines out there, he said. They're moving in a search pattern. Getting closer to this building every hour. How long do we have? Asked Mi-young. She was sitting with 3 other women, trying to keep them calm. But her own voice was shaking with fear. Maybe until tonight, Kyungmin said. Maybe less. Tae-hyun had been studying the machines through a pair of binoculars. Even now, with death so close, he could not stop being a scientist. They're different from the ones we fought before, he said. Smaller, faster, built specifically for finding hidden people. Great, said Hansel. So they learned how to hunt us better too. The old man was right. Every day the machines became more efficient. They had started by scanning large areas with their red beams. Then they learned to follow heat signatures from body warmth. Now they were using some kind of sensor that could detect heartbeats through solid walls. We could try to run, suggested Jinnae, a young woman who worked in the colony's greenhouse. Get to the forest and hide there. They have flying hunters now, Kungmin said. I saw them yesterday. Things that look like giant bats with metal wings. They patrol the whole area around the colony. So we're trapped, Youngji said. She was rocking her baby gently, but the little girl's eyes stayed closed. We can't fight, we can't run, can't hide. Dongho looked around at the faces of the last free humans in New Hanyang. They were good people. Farmers and teachers and shopkeepers who had come here to build a better life. They did not deserve to end up as slaves to some alien intelligence. Maybe should try to contact the entity directly, he said. Try to negotiate. Negotiate what? Asked Sunya. It doesn't want our resources. It doesn't want our technology. It wants us. Our minds. Our bodies. What do we have to bargain with? I don't know, Dongho admitted. But sitting here waiting to die is not working either. A sound from outside made everyone freeze. Heavy footsteps on the street above. The whining noise of charging energy weapons. Voices calling out in a language that sounded like music mixed with metal scraping. They found us, Kungmin whispered. The footsteps stopped right above their heads. Through the basement ceiling, they could hear the aliens talking to each other. The sounds were beautiful and terrible at the same time. "How many?" asked HAE-1.Kun-Min, held up 3 fingers. Then 5, then 8. More footsteps joined the first group. Soon, it sounded like an army was gathering on the street. "All that for 12 people," Myung said with bitter humor. "We should feel honored." Something began cutting through the basement door. A bright blue beam that melted metal like butter. Sparks fell onto the floor and burned small holes in the concrete. "Everyone stay back," Kungmin said. He picked up the last working pulse rifle they had saved. It only had enough power for 3 shots, but he was going to use them. The door fell inward with a crash. The opening filled with dark shapes carrying weapons that glowed with alien energy. Behind them came one of the harvesting machines, its red scanning beam sweeping across the basement. "Drop your weapons," a voice said in perfect human language. It came from the machine, but the words were spoken in Ginwoo's voice. The entity was using their captured friend like a translator. "Go to hell," Kungmin said. He fired his rifle at the closest alien figure. The shot passed through empty air. The alien had moved faster than human eyes could follow. Before Kungmin could fire again, something wrapped around his arm and pulled the weapon away. The aliens moved into the basement like flowing water. They were tall and thin, with too many joints in their arms and legs. Their faces were hidden behind helmets that looked like insect heads. But their movements were graceful, almost like dancing. "Do not resist," Jinwoo's voice said from the machine. "Resistance only brings pain. Cooperation brings peace." "What did you do to him?" Haewon shouted at the machine. "What did you do to our friend?" "We gave him purpose," the machine answered. "We gave him peace. We can give you the same gift." One of the aliens reached toward Yoonji and her baby. The young mother pressed herself against the wall, holding her daughter tight against her chest. "Please," she whispered. "She's just a baby. She hasn't hurt anyone." The alien paused. Its helmet tilted to one side like it was studying the crying child. For a moment, something almost like curiosity showed in its movements. That was when Sunya made her choice. She had been standing near the back wall, forgotten by everyone in the confusion. In her hand was her emergency food pack, the last meal any of them would eat as free humans. A simple nutrition bar made of processed grains and artificial flavoring. Sunya was tired. More tired than she had ever been in her life. Tired of running. Tired of hiding. Tired of watching her friends disappear one by one. The alien entity had crushed every form of resistance they could think of. It had countered every weapon, every tactic, every desperate plan. But as she looked at the alien studying Yoonji's baby, Sunya noticed something. The creature's movements were slow, careful, like someone who had been working for a very long time without rest. When was the last time this entity had stopped to rest? When was the last time it had done something just because it wanted to, not because it needed to conquer or consume? Sunya stepped forward. Every alien in the room turned to look at her. Energy weapons charged and aimed at her chest. The harvesting machine's red beam focused on her face, but instead of fighting or running or begging for mercy, Sunya did something none of them expected. She broke her nutrition bar in half. The smell of artificial strawberry flavoring filled the basement. Then she held out one piece toward the alien that had been studying the baby. "You look tired," she said in a quiet voice. "When was the last time you ate something just because it tasted good?" The basement went completely silent. Even the baby stopped crying. Every alien in the room stood perfectly still, as if Sunya had said something in a language they had forgotten how to understand. The alien creature stared at the offered food for a long moment. Its helmet sensors focused on the nutrition bar like it was the most important thing in the universe. Then, very slowly, it reached out one long finger and touched the food. The alien's finger touched the nutrition bar, and everything changed. The creature jerked back as if the food had burned it. Its helmet made a sound like breaking glass. The other aliens in the basement stepped away from their companion, their weapons lowering in confusion. "What is happening?" One of them said in a voice like wind through metal pipes. The alien that had touched the food began to shake. Its long arms wrapped around its body like it was trying to hold itself together. The helmet fell from its head and clattered on the concrete floor. For the first time, the humans could see an alien face. It was not what they expected. The creature looked almost human, but stretched and changed. Its skin was pale gray, with veins of silver running through it, like circuit patterns. Its eyes were large and dark, but they held something the humans recognized. Pain, confusion, and something else. Something that looked like memory trying to wake up. Double quotes double quotes. The alien said in a voice that cracked like old wood. We remember ... The harvesting machine's lights began flashing in rapid patterns. Its scanning beams swept across the alien over and over again like it was trying to understand what was happening. Unit 749 is malfunctioning. Beginning corrective procedures. The machine extended a metal arm toward the confused alien. But before it could touch the creature, Sonia stepped between them. "No," she said firmly. "Leave him alone." The machine paused. This was not in its programming. Humans were supposed to run, or fight, or surrender. They were not supposed to protect aliens. "Please move aside," Jinwoo's voice said. "Unit 749 requires repair." "He's not a unit," Sonia said. "He's a person. And people don't need to be repaired when they remember who they are." She turned back to the alien who was still shaking on the floor. Gently, she knelt down and offered the other half of her nutrition bar. "What's your name?" she asked softly. The alien stared at the food with wide eyes. "Name it," whispered. I had a name once. Before the joining, before the purpose, I was ... It struggled with words that seemed to hurt. "I was called ... Keeper of Growing Things." "That's a beautiful name," Sonia said. "I'm Sonia. I keep people connected to each other through communications." Keeper of Growing Things reached out with a trembling hand and took the offered food. The moment it touched the nutrition bar, tears began flowing down its gray cheeks. "The taste," it whispered. "I remember taste. Not just fuel for the body, but ... pleasure, choice, the joy of eating something because you want to, not because you need to survive." The other aliens were backing away now, their weapons forgotten. They stared at their companion like they were seeing a ghost. "This is impossible," one of them said. "The joining cannot be undone. The purpose cannot be questioned." But Keeper of Growing Things was changing before their eyes. The silver veins in its skin were fading. Its posture was becoming less rigid, more natural. When it bit into the nutrition bar, it made a sound of pure happiness. "I remember my world," it said between bites. "Green fields, under 3 suns. Children playing in gardens that grew food and flowers together. We were farmers, artists. We made beautiful things just because beauty made us happy." "What happened to your people?" asked Hae-Won. She had moved closer, her medical training overcoming her fear. "The collective found us," Keeper of Growing Things said. "It offered us efficiency, purpose, power over other worlds. We thought we were joining something greater than ourselves." The alien's voice grew sad. "But we lost ourselves instead. One by one, our individual thoughts were absorbed into the group mind. Our names became numbers. Our dreams became orders. We forgot what it meant to choose our own path." The harvesting machine was making angry buzzing sounds. Its lights flashed red and orange in warning patterns. "Unit 749 is compromised," Jinwoo's voice announced. "Beginning termination sequence." "No," Sonia shouted. She grabbed Keeper of Growing Things and pulled the alien behind her. "You can't kill him for remembering who he is. The individual consciousness threatens the collective," the machine said. "It must be eliminated." But something strange was happening to the other aliens, too. They were looking at their companion with expressions the humans had never seen. Before, curiosity, wonder, and something that might have been envy. "How does it feel?" one of them asked quietly. "To remember yourself," terrifying Keeper of Growing Things admitted. "But also ... wonderful. Like waking up from a dream where you were someone else." The alien who had asked the question stepped forward. I think I had a name too. Before the joining, it was It was ... double quotes. The creature struggled, pressing its hands against its helmet. I cannot remember. The collective will not let me remember. Try harder, Sunya urged. Fight for it. My name was ... was ... double quotes. Suddenly the alien's helmet cracked. Singer of Star Songs. My name was Singer of Star Songs. The harvesting machine spun around to face this new threat. But now all the aliens in the basement were stirring. One by one, they were trying to remember their forgotten names. Builder of safe harbors. Tenderzelf small creatures. Weaver of light patterns. Walker between worlds. Each name spoken was like a crack in a dam. Memories flooded back. Individual thoughts that had been buried for centuries began to surface. The harvesting machine was spinning frantically now, its weapons charging and discharging randomly. Multiple system failures detected. Collective control compromised. Requesting immediate backup from the core ship. But the humans could hear something else in its panic. Fear. For the first time since the invasion began. The entity was afraid. It can't control them anymore, Taehyun said with amazement. Just by remembering who they were, they're breaking free from its influence. Keeper of Growing Things stood up slowly. The alien was still shaking, but now it was from excitement rather than confusion. We have been slaves for so long, it said. Slaves to efficiency. Slaves to the endless hunger for conquest. But you reminded us of something we thought was lost forever. What? Asked Dong Ho. The simple pleasure of sharing a meal with a friend. The harvesting machine made one last desperate attempt to regain control. It fired a beam of the mind-controlling gas that had defeated the human fighters before, but the gas had no effect on the awakened aliens. They waved it away like smoke and continued talking to the humans. How do we fight the collective? Singer of Star Songs asked. How do we free the others who are still trapped? Sunya smiled and reached into her pack. She pulled out the remaining emergency food rations. There were only 6 left. She began breaking them into pieces. The same way we freed you, she said, offering food to each of the aliens. One meal at a time. One memory at a time. One friendship at a time. As the aliens tasted food offered freely instead of taken by force, something beautiful began to happen. The rigid formations they had maintained dissolved. They sat down in a circle with the humans, sharing the simple meal like old friends. Above them, the core ship began to pulse with alarm signals. The collective had encountered something it had never faced before in all its centuries of conquest. Compassion was contagious. The core ship above them was not happy. Through the broken basement windows, the humans and their new alien friends could see lights flashing in angry patterns across the massive vessel. The sad singing sound had changed to something that sounded like screaming. The collective is trying to regain control, said Keep. The alien was sitting cross-legged on the floor, sharing water from Haewon's medical canteen. It is sending override signals to force us back into the group mind. Is it working? Asked Sunya. She watched as Singer of Star Songs pressed both hands against the sides of its head, clearly fighting some kind of internal battle. It hurts, Singer of Star Songs said through gritted teeth. Like someone is trying to erase my thoughts and replace them with orders. But I remember my name now. I remember who I was before. That makes it harder for them to control me. Taehyun was taking notes in his small book, asking questions like the scientist he was. How long were you part of the collective? How many worlds has it conquered? Time has no meaning in the group mind, answered Builder of Safe Harbors. This alien was smaller than the others, with delicate hands that looked like they had once created beautiful things. But I remember being absorbed during the conquest of my homeworld. That was many cycles ago, hundreds of your years perhaps? And before that? Myung asked. She was sitting with Yunji, helping to keep the baby warm. What were your people like? The freed aliens looked at each other with expressions of pain and longing. Slowly, they began to remember and share. My people were builders, said Builder of Safarbers. We created cities that floated among the clouds. Beautiful towers that swayed with the wind but never fell. We built homes for any creature that needed shelter. Mine were artists, singers, star songs added. We sang the stories of the stars. Each constellation had its own song, its own tale of birth and death and rebirth. Children learned about the universe through music. We were farmers, said Keeper of Growing Things. But not just farmers. We grew food that was also art, gardens that fed the body and the soul. Every meal was a celebration of life. Dong Ho felt a chill run through him. These descriptions sounded familiar. Too familiar. That sounds like human colonies, he said quietly. Like what we were trying to build here on New Hanyang? The aliens nodded sadly. The collective seeks out worlds like yours, explained Tender of Small Creatures. Places where people live in harmony, where they create beauty, where they care for each other. Why? Asked Haewon. Why destroy the most peaceful civilizations? Because peace is inefficient, said Weaver of Light Patterns. Beauty serves no tactical purpose. Love makes people vulnerable. The collective believes that only conquest has meaning. Only power has value. Walker Between Worlds, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. But that is not the real reason. The collective hunts peaceful worlds because it remembers what it lost. Every time it sees people living in harmony, it is reminded of what it used to be. And that reminder is painful. What do you mean? Sunya asked. The collective was not always a conquering force, Walker Between Worlds explained. Long ago, it was a single world. A beautiful world with people who lived much like yours. They had art and music and love. They shared meals and told stories and raised children in peace. The humans listened in stunned silence as the truth was revealed. But their star was dying, the alien continued. Their world was cooling. They faced extinction, so they made a choice. They decided to preserve their civilization by merging their minds into a single consciousness that could survive in space. They built ships that could travel between stars, seeking new worlds where their people could live. What went wrong? Kyungmin asked. The merging was successful. Too successful. Individual thoughts became part of a larger mind. Personal desires were absorbed into group goals, and the group goal became simple. Survive at any cost. Singer of Star Songs picked up the story. They found other worlds, other civilizations, but instead of learning to live with them, they decided it was easier to absorb them, more efficient to take their resources and add their knowledge to the collective. Each conquest made them stronger. Added builder of safe harbors, but also emptier. With every world they consumed, they lost more of what made them people instead of just a force of nature. How many worlds? Taehyun asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Thousands, whispered Keeper of Growing Things. Maybe tens of thousands. Every peaceful civilization in this part of the galaxy. Every world that tried to build something beautiful instead of something powerful. The weight of that number settled over the basement like a heavy blanket. Thousands of worlds. Billions of people. All absorbed into a collective consciousness that had forgotten why it wanted to survive in the first place. But you remembered, Dong Ho said, looking at the 5 aliens who had broken free. When Sunya offered you food, you remembered who you used to be. Yes, said Keeperov. Growing Things. The taste of food shared freely instead of taken by force. It brought back memories we thought were erased forever. Memories of choice, of kindness, of the simple pleasure of eating something because it tasted good. Is that why the collective is so angry? Asked Myung. Because you escaped its control? Partly, said Singer of Star Songs, but mostly because we proved something the collective has denied for millennia. We proved that individual consciousness can exist, that personal choice is possible, that the group mind is not the only way to survive. The core ship above them was pulsing faster now. The angry lights were getting brighter. It's calling for reinforcements, said Walker Between Worlds. Other collective ships from nearby systems? They will come to study what happened here, to find a way to prevent it from happening again. How long do we have? Kungmin asked. Days, maybe a week. Sunya stood up and looked around at the mixed group of humans and aliens. Then we need to work fast. If sharing a meal can break 5 people free from the collective, what would happen if we could reach more of them? The controlled humans outside, Haywan said with sudden understanding. Our friends and neighbors. They're still alive in there. Still part of the collective? But if we could remind them who they are, ... it might work, said Tender of Small Creatures. But it would be dangerous. The collective will try to stop us. It will adapt to prevent more defections, like it adapted to our weapons and tactics. Dong Ho said, yes, but this is different. This is not about technology or strategy. This is about memory, about identity, about the things that make us who we are instead of what we do. Sunya smiled and reached for her communication equipment. Then let's remind everyone who they are, one person at a time, one meal at a time, one memory at a time. Outside, the first reinforcement ships began appearing in the sky. But in the basement of the old church, something new was beginning. Not a rebellion based on weapons or tactics, but something the collective had never faced before. A rebellion based on love. 3 days later, the sky above New Hanyang was filled with alien ships. 5 massive vessels had joined the original core ship, their dark shapes blocking out the sun like a fleet of storm clouds. But something was different about this gathering. Something the collective had not planned. Soon, Dash Shah stood in the middle of the colony's main square, surrounded by both humans and aliens. Not the controlled humans who had been harvested, but the original colonists who were slowly remembering who they were. Next to her stood Gin Wu, the mechanic who had been one of the first to be captured. But now his eyes were clear and focused. I remember building my first engine, he was saying to Builder of Sif Harbors. I was 12 years old. My father showed me how each part worked together to create motion. But more than that, he showed me how to take pride in making something that would help people. All around the square, similar conversations were happening. Keeper of Growing Things was talking with Dong Ho about the joy of watching seeds become food. Singer of Star Songs was teaching Myung and her students how her people use music to remember their history. The plan had worked better than anyone expected. Over the past 3 days, the freed aliens had approached the controlled humans one by one. But instead of fighting or trying to force them to remember, they had done something simple. They had offered them food. Real food prepared with care, not the efficient nutrient paste the collective provided. The taste brought back memories. Haywan explained to Tender of Small Creatures. When people ate food that was made with love instead of just efficiency, they started to remember meals they had shared with, family, birthdays, celebrations, quiet dinners with friends, and with those memories came identity. With identity came choice. With choice came freedom. Now nearly half of the colonists had broken free from the collective's control. They moved and spoke like themselves again, not like parts of a larger machine. The core ship had tried to stop the process by sending more control signals, but each person who remembered their name made it easier for others to resist. How many have we reached? Asked Sunya. 87 humans and 12 more of our people, reported Walker Between Worlds. But the collective is adapting. The reinforcement ships carry new control systems, stronger signals. They plan to stop this rebellion before it spreads further. As if summoned by those words, the largest of the new ships began to descend toward the colony. It was different from the organic-looking vessels they had seen before. This one was all metal and sharp angles. Built for one purpose, control. The enforcement ship, said Singer of Star Songs with fear in their voice. It carries the core minds of the collective. The original consciousness that started all of this. Can we fight it? Asked Kungmin. He had weapons again. They seemed small and useless against something so vast. Not with force, said Keeper of Growing. Things are. But maybe we do not need to fight it. Maybe we need to heal it. The enforcement ship landed in the fields outside the colony with a sound like thunder. Its hull opened, and a ramp extended to the ground. What emerged was unlike anything they had seen before. It was enormous. Easily 3 times the size of the harvesting machines. But this was not a machine at all. It was a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, Light pulsed through its body in complex patterns that hurt to look at directly when it spoke. Its voice came from everywhere at once. I am the prime core of the collective. I have come to correct the malfunction in this system. The entity floated toward the square where the freed humans and aliens waited. As it approached, some of the newly freed people began to sway, their eyes going blank as the control signals tried to reclaim them. Return to efficiency, the prime core commanded. Individual consciousness is chaos. Only unity brings order. Only order brings survival. Survival for what? Sunya stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. What is the point of surviving if you forget why you wanted to live in the first place? The prime core focused its attention on her. The light patterns in its body shifted to harsh reds and oranges. You are the source of the contamination, the one who introduced the chaos of choice into our perfect system. I shared a meal with a friend, Sunya said simply. That's all. I gave someone food because they looked tired and hungry, inefficient, wasteful, emotional. These concepts weaken survival, do they? Dong-ho joined Sunya in facing the entity. Let me tell you about efficiency. When we first came to this colony, we tried to grow crops the most efficient way possible. Maximum yield, minimum effort. But the plants were weak. They died easily. More colonists gathered around them. Humans and aliens standing together. It was only when we started caring about the soil, really understanding it, that our crops became strong, Dong-ho continued. We grew flowers alongside vegetables because the flowers attracted insects that helped the food plants. It seemed inefficient, but it made everything better. Irrelevant, the prime core said. But its light patterns were changing, shifting to confused blues and greens. What about art? Asked Mi-young. My students draw pictures and write stories. It doesn't help them survive directly, but it helps them understand themselves and each other. Is that inefficient? What about music? Added singer of star songs. My people's songs served no tactical purpose, but they kept our history alive. They helped children learn. They brought joy to difficult days. The prime core was spinning slowly now, its energy patterns becoming more chaotic. Joy is ... irrelevant. History is ... past. Art is ... beautiful. Finished, keeper of growing things. Art is beautiful. And beauty makes life worth living. Tae-hyun stepped forward with his notebook. I've been studying what happened here. When the controlled people broke free, their brain patterns didn't become chaotic. They became more complex, more creative, more capable of solving problems in new ways. Individual consciousness doesn't weaken survival, Hae-won added. It strengthens it. People who remember who they are fight harder to protect what they love. The prime core stopped spinning. For a long moment, it hovered in silence. Then, in a voice that seemed smaller somehow, it spoke. We remember something. From before the joining, a memory that the collective thought was erased. The crystalline shell around the entity began to crack. Light leaked out in new patterns, softer and warmer than before. I remember sitting with my family around a fire, sharing food we had grown ourselves. My child was laughing. My partner was singing. The food was simple, but it tasted wonderful because we were together. Sunya slowly reached into her pack and pulled out her last nutrition bar. It was nothing special, just processed grains and artificial flavoring, but she broke it in half and held out one piece toward the massive entity. Would you like to remember what that felt like? She asked gently. The prime core extended a tendril of pure energy toward the offered food. The moment it touched the simple meal, the change was dramatic. The harsh crystalline shell shattered completely, revealing a being of flowing light that pulsed with warm, gentle colors. I remember, it whispered. I remember who I was before I forgot how to be myself. Around the square, every collective ship in the sky began to change. Control signals stopped broadcasting. Harvesting machines powered down. And from the vessels came thousands of voices, each one remembering their own name, their own identity, their own reason for wanting to live. the collective was not being destroyed. It was being healed, transformed from a force of conquest into something it had been long ago. A community of individuals who chose to work together while remaining themselves. Months later, Dong-ho stood in his wheat fields watching an amazing sight. Human children played alongside young aliens whose names meant things like Skuvno songs and planter of hope seeds. The harvest was better than ever. Grown with techniques that combined human knowledge with alien wisdom, the former. Collective ships had become homes for those who wanted to explore the galaxy not as conquerors, but as teachers and students. They shared their knowledge freely and learned from every world they visited. Sunya had become the first ambassador to the restored alien civilizations. But her most important job was still the same as it had always been, helping people stay connected to each other. "It's amazing," Haewon said, as she joined Dong-ho in the fields. All of this started because someone offered a meal to a stranger. Dong-ho smiled and looked up at the ships in the sky. They still looked alien, but now their lights pulsed with warmth and welcome instead of threat and control. "Maybe that's the most human thing of all," he said. "Seeing someone who needs kindness and offering it, even when they look nothing like us." In the distance, children's laughter mixed with alien songs, and the sound carried across the fields like a promise that tomorrow would be even better than today.